Last Friday, the Men's Issues Awareness Society at Ryerson served the RSU with notice of an application for judicial review. The application is asking the judge to overturn the decision that the RSU made earlier this year to deny official club status to the group. The development is the latest in the ongoing legal saga between the group and the RSU. Earlier today, I sat down with the two students who filed the application to better understand the group's intentions and to see how this process has unfolded. And here's what they had to say. I guess the first question is, when this was brought forward on Friday, you guys applied for judicial review, which is in essence, just to catch everybody up who's watching, asking a judge to overturn the RSU's decision. What other results are you hoping to see come out of this case?
Well, first we'd like the RSU to recognize the mistake that they made and to recognize just how much power that they actually have. It seems like they're running on the assumption that they could just do whatever they want, and that's not true. They have their own policies that they need to follow and their own procedures, and they just haven't been doing that. We'd also like a judge's decision because we'd like to see a precedent set for future groups that would like to form after we're gone. So that's essentially what we'd like, a warning to future student unions that they can't just get away with whatever they want.
Okay, so just for the sake of clarity, you guys are not suing the RSU though, correct?
Not really. I mean, we are asking them to cover our legal expenses, but essentially this is more symbolic than anything.
Okay, so, for a lot of students, they probably woke up this morning and saw, their students' union all over the news in national headlines from Vice to National Post. And they're probably wondering, how did we get here? This has been a long process. So can you kind of walk us through what this process has been like for you guys from when you first started the application to now?
Sure. So I started the application in October. And really what we were just trying to do was gather support, talk to students, see what they wanted to see in a men's issues group. And we got a lot of feedback, and we really tried to make this a group that was really inclusive and accepted different people of different backgrounds who had different ideas about what they'd like to see tackled regarding men's issues. So so we submitted the application and we thought everything was going great, and then we started getting all this kickback, from groups like the Feminist Collective, as well as, members within the RSU who immediately were hostile towards us before even having a sit-down meeting with us. And, and then of course we had the meeting with the RSU to become an official group, and right when we walked in there we could tell that the atmosphere was very negative and very much against us. But we tried our best. We were honest with them. We told them everything that we could, and I guess they just didn't see what we saw in the group and what many other people saw.
So you mentioned that meeting. There were a few meetings. I'm under the impression there were a few different meetings that happened over the past few months with different members of the RSU. You also met with the board of directors at one point. However, there was a specific meeting mentioned in the application. I believe it was at the end of October, and you met with RSU President Andrea Bartlett. I think, Kevin, it was just you. I don't know if both of you were particular, but I'm aware that you were there. So you met with RSU President Andrea Bartlett and the VP of Equity, Rabia Idris. And I guess they brought forward 5, they call them committee concerns that they wanted the MIS to kind of go over in order to be approved, in order for your application for club status to be approved. And just I wanted to kind of address some of those concerns and see what your guys' response to those concerns had been and how you worked them into the amended constitution that you then submitted. So the first concern was that the MIAS did not provide proper this is a quote from what your application says, did not provide proper safety measures to keep it from spinning out of control. Can you elaborate on what that meant when the RSU kind of gave you that concern?
Yeah, it's, they don't really mention exactly how we provide an unsafe space or exactly how we spin out of control. You know, I brought it up at the meeting that, you know, you wouldn't tell, you know, a Muslim association from starting up, you know, how are you going to prevent your members from spinning out of control and becoming a radical Islamist group? It's just offensive and ridiculous to do so. So I don't know why they were bringing it up with us to begin with, but we did add extra safety measures. We did make it, we did specify that the executive did have to provide safety measures for all their events, as well as putting clauses that, you know, in terms of the objectives of the group, we put in a clause that those objectives could not be overturned without at least 80% of all members of the group voting for it. So it would be very difficult for someone to change our group the objectives and the dynamic of the group.
Right.
And so, you know, when we appealed, I presented the new constitution with all these amendments, and they were still not satisfied. I'm not sure why, but yeah, that's what happened.
Okay, so, you know, the second concern was that the group did not acknowledge the systemic privilege that men have. And I know that, Alex, when I spoke to you earlier, you mentioned that the group does not acknowledge what you said, does not acknowledge the patriarchy. You know, to a lot of students, they might just be confused by that phrasing. Do you think you could elaborate on what it means when the Men's Issues Awareness Society says that they don't acknowledge the patriarchy?
What we mean by that is that we don't force our members to acknowledge or not acknowledge the patriarchy. Our group invites open discussion of people with a variety of different beliefs. So when we say that we don't formally acknowledge the patriarchy, that means that we're inviting different viewpoints and open discussion for our members. So for this reason, we don't acknowledge the patriarchy formally.
Okay, so the other three concerns, the last three concerns that were listed in this, were in regards to, you know, the MIAS's relationship or supposed relationship with external groups. And I think the named groups were CAFE, which is the, not exactly positive.
Canadian Association for Equality.
And then AVFM, which is the A Voice for Men group. Could you speak to maybe, you know, if there is any legitimacy to the relationship that they were concerned about, and what your relationship is like with these two groups? Is there a relationship to even speak on?
Well, there's absolutely no relationship to A Voice for Men. As for CAFE, they did help us start the group, but we operate separately from them. So they helped us start up, but
Yeah.
they don't dictate what our group is.
Just to add to that, they've helped us in an instrumental way, so we've used them as a tool for our group whenever we need it. But they don't run the events that we do. They don't tell us what to do. We are our own independent organization or group, and you know, all the decisions come from within. So this idea that we can't associate with other groups when they want to help us is ridiculous. You know, the RSU has a policy that students are able to freely associate with whoever they choose. So yeah, so it's ridiculous that would be a reason to reject us.
So then, I guess in November, you then submitted an amended, I believe it was November, an amended constitution to the RSU for review again. And it addressed these concerns. NJ Bartlett has said that it was a slightly revised version, and said that there were still too many unanswered questions from the board that they weren't satisfied with, and that's, you know, the reason why it was then inevitably passed on over again and passed on to the RSU's board of directors later in that month. The board then voted against granting you guys student group status at the end of January, which is, you know, how we're now here in April with asking the decision to be overturned.
Mm-hmm.
This has obviously been a lengthy process. It's taken the entire school year, you know, in essence, with many individuals involved. Would you say that the RSU's process has been fair?
No, not at all. Actually, the RSU has, in my opinion, deliberately thwarted our group from a quick process. There was one time where We didn't hear about the appeal hearing until the day before, and they wanted us to submit a presentation as well as an updated constitution that day. So we couldn't even make that meeting. I had a doctor's appointment the next day, so I told them I couldn't make it, and they postponed it for an extra 2 weeks. And then another time that they postponed it was just before the break. After the appeal hearing, that they said, okay, well, we're not going to make the decision. We'll let the board of directors make the decision, but that won't be for like a month and a half after we come back from break. So, you know, the RSU just, they dragged their feet as much as they could, and they really just didn't want to see us succeed.
Do you think the RSU has treated this Men's Issues Awareness Society, you know, with the same like fairness that they treat other student groups with?
I don't think so. I think you know, for other groups, they bend over backwards to support them, but when it comes to, you know, a small minority that they don't agree with, you know, they're nowhere to be found, and they actively do things to destroy us.
Do you think maybe the reason that, you know, you're feeling this process, or that they have treated this unfairly, is because the RSU is not aware of what the Men's Issues Awareness Society is kind of, you know, looking to do? I know when we spoke earlier, again, you mentioned that there was a distinction between men's issues and men's rights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, does the Men's Issues Awareness Society make that distinction? And can you elaborate on what that distinction is?
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure, I'll speak to that. So what we recognize as men's issues is much broader than men's rights. Men's rights kind of covers a small fraction of what men's issues are. At least in my opinion, men's rights has to do with the law. So things like conscription, parental rights, those are kind of men's rights issues. Whereas men's issues in general also cover cultural as well as societal issues. So, you know, the reason that boys are failing in school, the high rates of suicide amongst men, the homeless population. So those are just men's issues. They're not really men's rights issues. And I think that's why we wanted to call ourselves a men's issues group, because we wanted to cover more than just men's rights. And, you know, the RSU is well aware about what we are, and they've now interviewed me. I think our first meeting ran to like 2 hours, something like that. So they're very much well aware about who we are, but they still have their biases, and they still bring up things like, well, what are you going to do about, you know, when your members are making women feel unsafe? And my answer to that is, well, how have they made them feel unsafe? Are they actually unsafe, or are they just feeling unsafe? And being actually unsafe and feeling unsafe is two very different things, and I don't think that the RSU knows that distinction very well.
And to add to that, what is making these women feel unsafe? Is it our ideas? Because as far as I'm concerned, that ideas aren't dangerous, and I think that's the only thing that the RSU is really concerned about is our ideas, because we present ideas that challenge their ideas. So that's the only thing, I guess, really dangerous about us.
Okay, so, you know, to kind of, before we wrap, the RSU's budget is made up of student fee, you know, tuition contributions, and every year they set aside a certain portion of that budget, you know, for cases like these. However, when I spoke to Andrea earlier, she mentioned that with this case, the RSU will most likely surpass that budget. In your opinions, you know, why should students be paying to support this case, essentially?
I don't think students should be paying for it. I think that the RSU made a huge mistake, that, you know, the RSU now has to answer to students about why they're wasting their money pursuing this case, and really it was because of their own negligence, because of their own ideologies and their hard-headedness. They could have easily avoided this by, you know, working with us to make sure that this group was well aligned with what their policies wanted, and we believe that it was, and but they chose not to. Instead, they went on the attack, and here we are. I mean, if the student body wants to blame anybody, it should be the RSU, not us.
Okay. So I guess the last thing to bring this to a close is, we've heard what you guys are hoping to get out of this specific case, but you're leaving at the end of the summer, correct? I believe there's something about passing the torch happening this coming year. And Alex, you'll be here next year. What are you guys hoping, to see happen with Men's Issues Awareness Society at Ryerson over the coming year?
Sure, I'll take it first. Well, I first like to get out of the politics of it. I feel like this year was just embroiled in controversy and just, tackling the question about whether there should be a men's issues group on campus to begin with. Next year, I'd like to see, a more active group, one that engages the community more, one that hosts more events, that really, becomes part of the culture of the university. Because I feel like this year was just, it was too much, we were too embroiled in the drama of it that it really limited how much we could do as a group. And to the next group, I hope that they function more as a group rather than getting involved in the politics.
And you'll be staying on next year on the executive board.
Yes.
So are there any initiatives you guys are hoping to be able to work forward to next year that you're excited about or looking forward to?
I'm not sure what this group has in store yet. We'll see, I guess, what the outcome is of our application, and then we'll take it from there.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us today. I think this was really enlightening for everybody involved. So
Okay.
thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks so much.
No worries. Thank you.